Welcome back to Poorly Educated Today in the News. Grab your coffee, tighten the bolts on your brain, and maybe check your gas gauge because the world has been moving faster than a pickup truck rolling downhill with the brakes cut. In the last few days, we've had missiles flying across the Middle East, politicians in Washington arguing about who's actually in charge of war, reporters getting kicked out of the Pentagon for asking questions, border policy turning into a warehouse construction project, and tech companies debating whether artificial intelligence should help run the next battlefield. So if you're wondering whether things are calm and stable right now, buddy, they are not. Let's break down the chaos. Segment 1. Oil, missiles, and the strait that broke the gas pump. Well, folks, the Middle East decided to skip the argument phase and go straight to flipping the whole dang table. The United States and Israel launched strikes inside Iran, and suddenly the Strait of Hormuz is closed tighter than a pickle jar at a county fair. That little stretch of water carries about a fifth of the planet's oil, so when it shuts down, the gas pump starts looking at you like it needs rent money. Now analysts on TV are talking about maritime choke points and global supply chains, but out here the translation is simple. Every time somebody fires a missile, my truck payment gets jealous of the fuel bill. It's like watching a bar fight where every punch adds 20 cents to unleaded. And the funny thing is, the media panels are arguing about whether it's a strategic energy shock or a temporary disruption. Buddy, when my gas station sign flips numbers faster than a slot machine in Vegas, that ain't temporary. That's a financial horror movie. And somewhere there's an economist explaining futures markets, while a guy like me is calculating whether the mower runs on hope and bad decisions. Segment 2. Congress discovers the Constitution again. Now back home in Washington, Congress suddenly remembered that the Constitution exists, which is impressive because usually that document only gets attention when somebody needs a campaign slogan. Lawmakers are waving around something called the War Powers Resolution, which basically means Congress wants to remind the president that, technically, they're supposed to be part of the decision before we start lobbing missiles across continents. It's like three roommates arguing about who actually owns the remote control after somebody already ordered pay-per-view boxing. One side says the strikes were necessary to stop an imminent threat. The other side says the evidence is about as convincing as my cousin's story about a 10-pound bass that somehow disappeared before the photo. And the media's covering it like a political reality show. Red team yelling, blue team yelling, and a handful of libertarians yelling that nobody should have been yelling in the first place. But underneath the shouting is a real problem, because wars cost money. And when Washington starts talking about trillion-dollar emergency budgets, that's when taxpayers start feeling like the ATM at the world's most expensive gas station. Segment 3. Pentagon versus the reporters with pens. Meanwhile, inside the Pentagon, there's a whole different battle going on. And this one involves journalists, paperwork, and a level of pettiness that would make a homeowner association blush. The Defense Department rolled out new rules saying reporters have to sign agreements, basically acknowledging the Secretary's authority to kick them out if they ask the wrong questions. Now, major outlets said, nope, we're not signing that, which means a bunch of reporters might lose their Pentagon access badges. The whole thing feels like when a bar owner says you can stay as long as you promise not to ask where the karaoke machine came from. The administration says it's common sense security during wartime. The press says it's a First Amendment problem. And somewhere in the middle, the public is trying to figure out what information we're actually allowed to know while missiles are flying. The weird part is the internet already moves faster than any press briefing anyway. Half the time, a satellite image leaks online before the official spokesperson finishes saying no comment. So the government's trying to control the narrative, the media's trying to keep access, and the rest of us are just refreshing the news feed, wondering which version of reality shows up first. Segment 4: Border numbers, detention warehouses, and the drone problem. Now shifting gears to the southern border, the Department of Homeland Security says illegal crossings have dropped to levels nobody's seen in decades. According to the numbers, encounters fell dramatically, and officials are bragging that releases into the interior have basically hit zero. Supporters say it proves tough enforcement works. Critics say the policies are building a detention system the size of a small country. Because here's the thing nobody mentions on cable news. When you stop releasing migrants, you gotta put them somewhere. And the plan apparently involves warehouses big enough to store every lawn chair in Florida. It's like turning immigration policy into a Costco distribution center. And while that debate is happening, cartel groups are flying drones over the border like it's a tech startup testing delivery routes. One even got shot down with military gear near El Paso, which means border security now includes anti-drone operations. Think about that for a second. 10 years ago, the big concern was people climbing fences. Now it's drones, surveillance systems, and infrastructure budgets that look like a Pentagon shopping list. That's how fast policy escalates when politics meets technology. Segment 5: Artificial Intelligence, Pentagon Contracts, and Silicon Valley Ethics. And finally, we've got the strangest showdown of the week, which is Silicon Valley arguing with the Pentagon about whether artificial intelligence should help run warfare. One major AI company refused to let its software be used for autonomous weapons or mass surveillance, saying there were ethical lines they wouldn't cross. The Pentagon responded by blacklisting the company from federal contracts faster than a poker player folding a bad hand. Meanwhile, another tech giant publicly praised the ethical stance and then signed the exact same defense contract hours later. That's the most Silicon Valley thing I've ever heard. It's like announcing a diet while driving through a donut shop drive-through. The real issue, though, is that artificial intelligence is moving from chatbots and spreadsheets straight into national security planning. Governments want it to analyze intelligence, track data, maybe even guide weapons. Tech companies say that's dangerous territory. But money talks louder than ethics panels, and defense budgets have more zeros than my high school math homework. So now the future of warfare might involve algorithms deciding things humans used to argue about for months. And if that sounds unsettling, imagine explaining it to your granddad who still thinks the Wi-Fi router is a coffee warmer. In conclusion, the world just packed about 10 years of chaos into 1 week. Missiles flying overseas, Congress arguing about authority, reporters fighting for access, border policies expanding detention systems, and tech companies debating whether robots should help run wars. It's a geopolitical hurricane, and somehow the only thing everyone agrees on is that the gas bill is about to hurt.